See that? That was a compressed iron shot, but there is zero divot. And I'm going to show you that thinning your iron shots is going to give you the best compression and strikes. Don't believe me? Keep watching, I'll show you how. You may have heard of a golfer called Tiger Woods. He is renowned as one of the best ball strikers to ever played the game. And one of the keys to his ball striking, especially with irons, was the way he compressed the ball. It even astounds Scottie Scheffler, the world #1, who keeps winning everything. He couldn't even do it as well as Tiger Woods. He still does it, but Tiger Woods was the best at it. And one of the things that Tiger did, and many other top ball strikers do, is take very little divot when it comes with their irons. There's a mistake that most people make thinking when they're hitting an iron. You think, well, I've got to try and compress it, so I'm going to hit down on it. But there's a few things that happen when our intention is hitting down. For a start, we end up striking it with just too much of an angle of attack. And if you come in a little bit closer, when we have that angle of attack that's striking us down here, what's actually happening, if we're too steep, when we actually strike the ball, we're actually striking it too much on the top of the club face here. So it's missing the sweet spot. Like everyone thinks the sweet spot is about here. For really pure compressed iron shots, we need to imagine that it's just striking the face a little bit lower, just a groove or so a little bit lower. So when we understand that we don't need to hit down on the ball as much, what do we need to do? We need to be actually striking the ball first, yes, but we want to be taking the divot afterwards, yes, but when we try that, we end up hitting it at the top and not getting the compression. And what you can often hear with the sound is something that might be a little bit like this. All right, I exaggerated a bit there. I still got ball first, but I took a chunky divot. The reason that kind of came out dippy, because it hit the top of the club face here. I missed the sweet spot. My low point was after the ball, which, you know, a lot of people will understand is where we want an iron to be, because we want the divot to be striking just after. But what do we want to do instead to get that pure compression? We want to thin the golf ball, and that means that we want to be striking it around about middle of the equator. At least that's what our intention is going to be. But we want to thin it, okay, right about here, just below or around the equator with the bottom of the club here. But if we're doing that, we're going to catch it too thin. So what we want to try and do is blend the thin strike with taking a very slight divot afterwards. So we're going to catch the ball about here. It's going to slide up the face and it's going to continue going down, but our divot is actually still going to occur just afterwards. So what this is going to do is help us hit that sweet spot more often. This might take a bit of time to adjust to, because it is a different feel, it's a different concept. You might have to tweak with your setup, but mostly it's your intentions. And I wager you can do better at this just by trying to thin it. What we're going to do is hover the club. That's going to give us a little cheat, because I want you to actually try and thin some shots. You can start with a wedge, or I've got a 7-iron here. So I'm just going to not really adjust anything about my swing. My intention is going to be to strike that equator of that ball. And I took no divot there, no divot whatsoever. That certainly was not a thin strike. This one, I'm going to try and exaggerate and get it just a couple of yards off the ground, almost like a worm burner. It's actually harder than you think to strike the ball thin when you're hitting a 7-iron. I'm just hitting little shots here trying to warm up, but you'll be very surprised that the more control and confidence you get with doing this, that was a bit thinner, you're going to be able to control your low point. Now all of those are a bit too thin. They're not perfect strikes. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to try and do the same, but I'm actually going to try and get a little divot afterwards. So my thought process is going to be thin with a divot. Might sound strange, it might seem strange, but just that intention alone is going to really help us. Didn't quite get a divot, but my strike was a lot better. I really did get that compression. The ball's going a bit low now, so what do? Do I just thin it around the golf course? No. And Tiger Woods, one of the reasons why he was an impeccable ball striker is because his ball still went high. He got compression and height without hitting down on it and creating too much spin. So we can add a little bit extra intention here. And what we're going to do, which is going to be perfect, especially if you're having a tendency to strike down too much and you're getting too big of a divot, or it's coming out the top of the face, here's what I want you to do. Actually feel like we're adding a little bit of loft as we come into the ball. We don't want those hands going too far forward, again, because that's going to make it come out the top of the club and dig down too much. We are trying to feel that we're actually adding loft, allowing that release, feeling like a little bit like we're hitting a 3-wood or something like that. So we're adding a little bit of loft whilst thinning it. Be wary here of flipping the hands too much through the ball. We're not doing that. It's more about using the body to come up a little bit higher rather than the wrist. But with that, I'm trying to hit the equator of the ball. I'm trying to thin it. I'm trying to take a divot, and I'm trying to add loft. That went high. That was struck pure, and I did make a little scuff mark. Just to quickly recap, we're trying to thin it on the equator, we're trying to strike the ground after the ball, and we're trying to add a little bit of loft through it, but not by using the wrist. Don't try and do them all at the same time at first. I would go out, practice, and just try and strike as many thin as you can. Get better at thinning your iron shots. Then you can start trying to take the divot. Then you can start trying to add a little bit of loft as you move through the ball. All of these things are going to equate to a much better golf swing and a really pure strike, just like that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Check out this lesson.